When death became mercy. The twin suns of Theros 7 cast purple shadows across the ancient crystalline spires that jutted from the planet's surface like frozen lightning. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the human research vessel, Horizon's Edge, watching the alien architecture shimmer in the strange light. After 3 months of deep space travel, her team had finally reached the coordinates where long-range sensors had detected signs of an extinct civilization. "Captain," called Dr. Marcus Rivera from behind her, his voice tight with excitement. "The preliminary scans are incredible. These structures are at least 50,000 years old, but they're showing active energy signatures. Something down there is still working." Sarah turned to face her chief xenorchaeologist. Marcus was a thin man with prematurely gray hair and eyes that always seemed to be looking at something far away. He had spent his entire career studying dead civilizations, and this was exactly the kind of discovery that made him forget to eat or sleep. Active energy after 50 millennia. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "That's either very good engineering or very bad news." "My thoughts exactly," Marcus replied, pulling up a holographic display. "But there's something else. We're not alone down there." The hologram showed a detailed scan of the planet's surface. Scattered among the ancient spires were clearly newer structures, angular and metallic, bearing the distinctive design markers of the Valtheran Empire. Sarah's expression hardened. The Valtherans were the dominant force in this sector of the galaxy, and their approach to archaeology was often more about claiming territory than preserving history. "How many ships?" she asked. 3 heavy cruisers and a mobile research platform," Marcus said. "They've been here for at least 2 weeks, based on the excavation patterns we're seeing." Sarah made her decision quickly. "Signal them. We're going down." The Valtheran response came within minutes. Their leader, Commander Zexthol, appeared on the communication screen as a towering figure with deep blue skin and 4 arms, each ending in delicate, precise fingers. His species had evolved from aquatic predators, and their formal politeness often masked a calculating intelligence. "Captain Chen," Zexthol said, his voice carrying the musical undertones typical of his people. "We were not expecting human involvement in this excavation. These ruins fall within Valtheran territorial claims." "With respect, Commander," Sarah replied, keeping her tone diplomatic but firm. "This system was marked as unclaimed in the Galactic survey. We have as much right to study these ruins as anyone." Zexthol's large, dark eyes studied her for a moment. "Perhaps we can find a mutually beneficial arrangement. The Zelani civilization that built these structures left behind technology that could prove valuable to both our species. Would you consider a joint expedition?" Sarah was surprised. The Valtherans rarely shared anything, especially not with humans. "What's the catch?" "No catch," Zexthol said, though something in his expression suggested otherwise. "Simply that we have already made discoveries that require careful handling. Your species has a reputation for adaptability that might prove useful." 3 hours later, Sarah and Marcus stood in the main excavation chamber deep beneath the largest spire. The Valtheran team had been busy. Ancient walls covered in flowing script had been exposed, and strange machines hummed with power that should have died out eons ago. The air itself seemed to vibrate with energy. "Impressive work," Marcus said to researcher Clyera, the Valtheran scientist leading the translation efforts. Clyera was smaller than most of her species, with lighter blue skin marked by intricate patterns that indicated her scholarly status. "The Zelani were remarkable." Clyera agreed, her voice carrying a note of unease. "They achieved biological immortality through technological means, but their methods were concerning." Sarah noticed the way the Valtherans moved around certain areas of the excavation, avoiding specific chambers that had been sealed off. "What aren't you showing us?" Zexthol and Clyera exchanged what Sarah had learned to recognize as a meaningful look between Valtherans. Finally, Clyera spoke. "We have found evidence that the Zelani used other species as test subjects for their preservation experiments. Living beings were kept in stasis for centuries, while various life extension techniques were tested upon them. That's horrible, Marcus said, but not uncommon in ancient civilizations. Many species went through periods of unethical experimentation before developing proper moral frameworks. Yes, Clara said quietly. But Captain Chen, we have found something that directly concerns your species. She led them to a sealed chamber that had been carefully opened just enough to allow access. Inside, the walls were covered with detailed biological diagrams and flowing Zilani text. But what made Sarah's blood run cold were the specimens preserved in transparent containers along the walls. They were clearly humanoid, but not quite human. The proportions were wrong, the features too refined, the bone structure too perfect. These are human variants, Clara explained. The Zilani obtained baseline humans from somewhere and spent thousands of years modifying them, trying to create the perfect test subjects for their preservation experiments. They wanted beings that could survive the psychological trauma of extended stasis while remaining mentally intact for observation. Marcus was already examining the specimens with a portable scanner. The genetic markers are definitely human, but there are modifications: enhanced bone density, improved neural pathways, accelerated healing factors. It's like someone took human DNA and perfected it. The question, Zexthal said carefully, is where the Zilani obtained their original human subjects. According to our translation of their records, they harvested them from a small blue-green world in what you now call the Sol system. Sarah felt the chamber spinning around her. You're saying they took people from Earth? Approximately 12,000 years ago, Clara confirmed, long before humans developed space travel. The Zilani records describe primitive humans living in small communities, easy to take without being noticed. And they brought them here to be test subjects, Marcus said, his voice hollow. Not subjects, a new voice said from behind them. Guests. Everyone spun around to see a holographic figure materializing near the far wall. It appeared to be Zilani, tall and elegant with luminescent skin and eyes that seemed to hold starlight. But there was something wrong with its appearance, as if it were struggling to maintain cohesion. I am Echo, the figure said, its voice carrying harmonics that made Sarah's teeth ache. I am the last active preservation system of the Zilani civilization. I have been waiting for someone to find us. You're an I, Sarah realized. I am consciousness preserved in crystalline matrix, Echo replied. When the Zilani faced extinction, they created me to maintain their most important work: the preservation of consciousness itself. The humans you experimented on, Sarah said, her anger building. What happened to them? Echo's expression, if it could be called that, seemed to show genuine sadness. They were not experiments. They were the most successful preservation subjects we ever created. When the Zilani died out, I was left with a terrible choice. I could end the preservation protocols and let the remaining subjects die naturally, or I could maintain them indefinitely, hoping that someday someone would come who could help them. They're still alive, Marcus gasped. 1,843 individuals, Echo confirmed, maintained in perfect stasis for over 11,000 years. They were volunteers, Captain Chen. The Zilani offered them something their primitive civilization could not: immortality. Many chose to stay rather than return to their short, difficult lives on Earth. Sarah stared at the AI in disbelief. You're telling me there are nearly 2,000 humans from prehistoric Earth still alive in this facility? Alive and unchanged, Echo said. But their stasis chambers are beginning to fail. My power systems are degrading. I estimate that within one standard year, I will no longer be able to maintain the preservation protocols. They will die unless they are awakened. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of ancient machinery. Sarah could feel the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. Nearly 2,000 people who had been alive since before the dawn of civilization, preserved in alien technology, waiting for someone to decide their fate. Can they be safely awakened? She asked. Yes, Echo replied. But they will need time to adjust to your modern galaxy. They volunteered to stay with the Zilani, but they did not volunteer to sleep for 11,000 years. They will awaken to find their hosts dead and their world transformed. Commander Zexthal had been remarkably quiet during this exchange. Finally, he spoke. This discovery will change everything. The existence of these preserved humans will force every species in the galaxy to reconsider their policies toward human rights and treatment. Sarah understood what he wasn't saying. Many species in the galaxy viewed humans as a young, primitive race barely worthy of consideration. The knowledge that humans had been sophisticated enough to volunteer for immortality experiments 11,000 years ago would shatter that perception. There's more, Echo continued. The Zilani preservation technology could revolutionize medicine for all species. The techniques they developed could extend life, cure diseases, even restore consciousness to those who have suffered brain death. But this knowledge can only be shared with those who prove they will use it responsibly. And how do we prove that? Sarah asked. Echo's form flickered, and for a moment, Sarah thought the AI might be failing. Then it stabilized. By what you choose to do with my preserved guests. Do you wake them for their own benefit, or for what they might offer you? Do you treat them as people or as specimens? The Zilani made their choice 11,000 years ago. Now you must make yours. Sarah looked around the chamber at the sleeping forms of her distant ancestors, at the alien technology that had kept them alive through the rise and fall of civilizations, at the representatives of two very different species who would help decide the fate of nearly 2,000 human souls. We wake them, she said finally, all of them. And we let them choose what they want to do with their lives. Echo's form brightened. Then we begin the awakening protocols. But Captain Chen, be warned. The galaxy is about to learn that humans are far older and more significant than anyone imagined. Not everyone will be pleased with that revelation. As the ancient machines began to hum with new purpose, Sarah realized that this discovery would change not just human history, but the entire balance of power in the galaxy. The question was whether the universe was ready for the return of humanity's forgotten children. Echoes of tomorrow. The first human to awaken from 11,000 years of sleep was a woman named Kira. Her eyes opened slowly in the soft blue light of the medical bay aboard the Horizon's edge, blinking as consciousness returned to a mind that had last been active when mammoths still walked the earth. Captain Sarah Chen sat beside the awakening chamber, watching as Kira's vital signs stabilized on the medical monitors. Dr. Rivera stood nearby with a team of human and Valtheran medical specialists, all waiting to see if the revival process would actually work. Where? Kira's voice was barely a whisper, her throat dry from millennia of disuse. Where are the bright ones? Sarah leaned forward gently. The woman in the chamber appeared to be in her mid-20s, with dark hair and features that reminded Sarah of ancient Mediterranean peoples. According to Echo's records, Kira had been 24 when she entered stasis, a healer from a coastal tribe who had volunteered to help the Zilani understand human medicine. The bright ones are gone, Sarah said softly. Using the term Echo had explained was how the preserved humans referred to the Zilani. They died out long ago. My name is Sarah. I'm human, like you, but from your world's future. Kira's eyes widened as she took in Sarah's appearance, her modern clothes, the advanced medical equipment surrounding them. How long? She asked. 11,000 years, Dr. Rivera said gently. You've been asleep for 11,000 years. The silence that followed was broken only by the soft hum of life support systems. Kira stared at the ceiling for a long moment, processing information that would have driven most minds to madness. Finally, she spoke again. Are my people still alive? The tribes from the warm lands by the great water. Sarah felt her heart break a little. Your people grew and spread across the whole world. There are billions of humans now, living on many different worlds among the stars. Good, Kira said, and to Sarah's amazement, she smiled. That is very good. The bright ones said this might happen. They said we might sleep long enough to see our children inherit the sky. Over the following weeks, more humans were successfully awakened. Each revival was carefully monitored, and Sarah was constantly amazed by their resilience. These people had lived in a world where death from disease, starvation, or violence was common. The idea of sleeping for thousands of years and waking to find their descendants ruling the stars seemed to fill them with wonder rather than despair. There was Jorik, a hunter who spent hours staring out at the stars, marveling that humans now traveled between them. There was Anya, a storyteller who wanted to learn every tale that had been told in the 11,000 years she slept. There was Chen-Wei, a farmer who laughed with joy when he learned that humans had learned to grow food on other worlds. But not everyone in the galaxy was happy about the discovery. Commander Zexthul received the first formal complaint 3 days after news of the awakened humans reached the Veltheran capital. The message came from High Counselor Vexmora, one of the most influential voices in the Empire. Commander, the recorded message began. The revelation that humans possessed advanced relationships with extinct civilizations 11,000 years ago is causing significant concern among our allies. The Krillian Assembly is demanding that these ancient humans be quarantined for study. The Ethereal Collective believes they may carry dangerous knowledge from the Zilani period. Several member worlds are requesting that all human expansion be halted until we understand the full implications of this discovery. Zexthul deleted the message and immediately sent a response. The awakened humans are not weapons or threats. They are refugees from time itself, and they deserve our protection, not our fear. The response came back within hours. You are relieved of command pending investigation. Return to the capital immediately. Instead, Zexthul walked to the human section of the archaeological camp, where Captain Chen was helping the awakened humans adjust to their new reality. He found her sitting with a group of them around a portable heater, sharing stories about what Earth was like in their time. Captain, he said, we have a problem. Sarah listened as Zexthul explained the political situation developing across the galaxy. Several major powers wanted the awakened humans treated as specimens rather than people. Others were demanding that all humans be reclassified as a potentially dangerous ancient species rather than a young one. What do you recommend? Sarah asked. We need to get these people to safety, Zexthul replied. And we need to demonstrate to the galaxy that they're not a threat. It was Kira who provided the solution. She had been listening to their conversation with the careful attention of someone who had survived in a dangerous world by understanding the motivations of others. In our time, she said, when tribes feared each other, the wise ones would arrange a great gathering. Each tribe would bring gifts to show their peaceful intentions. Perhaps your people need to see what gifts we bring. What do you mean? Sarah asked. Kira smiled. We carry 11,000 years of Zilani knowledge in our memories. Not just their preservation technology, but their understanding of consciousness, their methods of healing, their philosophy of cooperation between different peoples. The Bright Ones taught us these things because they hoped we would someday teach them to others. Dr. Rivera's eyes lit up. You're saying you have access to Zilani knowledge that isn't stored in their computers. We were their students, said Jorik, the hunter. They shared their wisdom with us because we were curious. We learned their language, their science, their arts. We know things that even Iko might have forgotten. Over the next several days, the awakened humans began sharing their knowledge. Working with human and Veltheran scientists, they helped unlock Zilani medical techniques that could cure diseases thought incurable. They shared agricultural methods that could make barren worlds fertile. They demonstrated Zilani meditation techniques that could help different species understand each other's thoughts and emotions. Most importantly, they shared the Zilani philosophy of preservation, not just of life, but of knowledge, culture, and the bonds between different peoples. The Bright Ones made a great mistake. Anya, the storyteller, explained to a gathering of human and Veltheran leaders. They thought they could preserve life by controlling it, keeping it static and unchanging. But life is meant to flow like water, to grow and change, and meet new challenges. When they stopped growing, they began to die. That's why they chose to preserve us, added Chen Wei. We represented something they had lost, the ability to adapt, to change, to find hope in uncertainty. They didn't want to change us into something else. They wanted to learn from us how to change themselves. The message spread across the galaxy faster than official communications. The awakened humans weren't ancient weapons or dangerous relics. They were teachers, carrying knowledge that could benefit everyone. More importantly, they were living proof that humans had always been more than they appeared, not because they were physically superior, but because they never stopped growing, learning, and adapting. The political crisis began to shift. Instead of demanding quarantine, species began requesting human teachers. The Krillian Assembly, which had been terrified of human expansion, formally invited human agricultural specialists to help restore their dying homeworld. The ethereal collective asked for help understanding Zilani consciousness techniques. But the real change came when the awakened humans made their choice about the future. We could return to Earth, Kira said during a meeting of all the revived humans. Captain Chen has offered to take us home, to let us see what our world has become.